Hey class, this is Mr. Clark, and these are the video lecture notes for History 20, Chapter 4.2, Imperial China, and they're on pages 146 to 167 in your video textbook. Next slide. The short-lived Qin dynasty was followed by the much longer-lasting Han dynasty, which lasted from 202 BCE to 220 CE. Next slide. During the Han dynasty, Confucianism was adopted as the governing philosophy. It also penetrated society, shaping the Chinese worldview. Next slide. The Han also became an empire as borders were expanded in all directions. This map shows you the outlines of the Han Dynasty empire. Next slide. During the reign of Emperor Wu, who lived between 141 and 87 BCE, China extended control over parts of Korea, northern Vietnam, and also much of Central Asia. Next slide. The relative stability and productivity of the economy during this period spurred the development of Silk routes, which were trade routes spanning the known world at that time. Next slide. After the Han Dynasty fell, China was divided up by independent, short-lived kingdoms until 589 CE, when the Sui dynasty reunited most of the territory once controlled by the Han. Next slide. Thus, for 4 centuries, during what is known as the period of division, China was politically unstable and racked by endemic warfare. Next slide. Yet, in spite of the violence, these centuries also saw vibrant cultural developments, as Buddhism became an organized institutional religion, reshaping the spiritual landscape. Next slide. The Tang Dynasty, which reigned from 618 to 907 CE, was yet another long-lived one in Chinese history. Next slide. Tang rulers built an empire on the foundations of solid political and legal institutions, agricultural policy, and a formidable military. Next slide. Also during the Tang Dynasty, East Asia first emerged as an identifiable cultural sphere. Next slide. By Tang times, kingdoms had already formed on the Korean peninsula and on the main islands of Japan. Next slide. It was during the Tang that the ruling elites in both of these states made extensive efforts to adapt components of the Chinese political, legal, and writing system, as well as Chinese culture, to their own societies. Next slide. During the 7th century CE, the Silla dynasty unified the Korean peninsula, and the Yamato heavenly sovereigns unified much of Japan. 2 other unique East Asian civilizations had taken shape. Next slide. The last major dynasty surveyed was the Song dynasty, which lasted from 960 to 1279 CE. The Song dynasty is notable for the challenges it faced from northern conquest dynasties, its economic prosperity, and the civil service examination system and the educated elite of the scholar officials it created. Next slide. Also, since foot binding developed during the Song, we considered the status of women in Chinese society, where gender hierarchy was the norm. The Song dynasty ended with the Mongol conquests in 1279 CE. The Mongol Yuan dynasty made China one part of a much larger Eurasian territorial empire. Mongol rule lasted until 1368 CE, when native rebellions overthrew the Zhuan state, initiating a new period in Chinese history, the Ming Dynasty. It was during the Ming Dynasty that the best-known portions of China's Great Wall were constructed. The building of the wall itself began as early as 770 BCE. And that's it for video notes for chapter 4.2.